Oh, okay. I wasn't sure, so I didn't want to. All right, so we will call this meeting to order at 6:07. And we have no meeting minutes, and we have immediate business, the 23-24 budget.
So how would you like to approach this? Do you want us to go along the line? Do you want us to give a summary?
Want to do a summary and then kind of see where we're at, and then we can see.
Yeah, I went through and did like some notes of like some big ticket items. Shannon might be able to explain some of the others. We also embedded notes as we usually do.
Only because we get two new people.
Yeah.
So we should probably do page by page.
Okay.
Just to cover everything like we normally do, sorry.
But no, I think we were gonna do that. I think we were gonna do that, but she was gonna do an overview first.
Oh.
Of like where we stand and.
Oh, okay, sorry, but
Because we can go
Because
back.
this should be a little different too, because we have the budget, which will impact tax rates, but then we also have the warrant article and all of that as far as the new building. Or not the warrant article, the bond.
So
Sorry.
that's embedded in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that will impact you have two different numbers as far as what the increase will be as far as,
I did calculate that.
I
so
thought you
I'll
did.
go over that.
yeah, because I thought
Yeah,
I saw that.
just so that people
Okay.
get an understanding.
Yeah.
But yes.
Okay.
So, all right, so why don't I start? So first I'm gonna say, administration did a great job going through this budget. It's pretty close to 1.83 is what the actual percentage of increase is, not including the bond. I think that's important to note because there's gonna be a significant increase percentage-wise when we get to the end, but that is due to the bond, which we already had anticipated happening.
You said 1.83?
Yep, 1.83, that doesn't include the bond. With the bond, it is 4.48%. If you take the difference, the bond accounts for approximately 2.65% of it, which is almost exactly what they were coming to on that bond schedule that we received back in the, a couple years ago. I think it was actually like 2.67 or 2.57 or something, so it's very, very close to that. So I just wanted to note that first. The other thing I did, for those that are new, when you're looking through this budget, there are a couple of different color-coded items you'll see today and moving forward. Increases, which would be in column X. Those are going to be color-coded in like a light green for anything that is over 10,000 or more. Then anything that is 10,000 or less will be color-coded in orange. And then any changes we make between now and the time we go to bring to NBC, I will color code under column W, which is the darker blue, in yellow, so that it stands out so that you clearly know what's changed from budget meeting to meeting. So first I started with on page 3, which is the first page of the budget. Lines 10 and 11, those are your teacher salaries. Line 10, there is an increase in that line. One is because of your warrant article, that was your teacher. And then you also, the board approved an additional position this year, so that's on there as well. You will not lose that out of your default. The reason for that being is when I went back and looked at the rosters, we are still below the total FTE from 1 year to another. So we are okay.
Great.
So when you go through and you're looking at the rosters, you're going to notice that there's only one change from the budget roster to the default roster. The way you can tell that the difference is when you get to the back, you'll notice that the default roster is by color coded in like a gray at the top so that you can tell the difference. And once I get to that, there's one change. It's in regards to food service. So when I get to that later, I'll explain that. But just for new people that are the two board members, just so you know how that works.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So those are the two changes that occur there. On the same page on line 115, there is a decrease in the educational assistant line. That's just personnel change. On line 40, which is tuition to other districts, you do have the breakdown in this packet for high school tuition. What I'm going to tell you is that tuition rate has not been set. it is an estimated amount at this time. I just literally froze Pembroke last week, so I just haven't had an opportunity to do the analytical work that I need to do before I set that. So that's my next step. We did reach out to Shannon to discuss, what 8th graders we had. And, I also spoke with Pembroke Academy to see what 12th graders were leaving. So we're estimating 160 students. The next change, I'm going to flip through some pages because some of these pages are really all supply stuff. We can go through those later.
Sure.
Page 6. Page 6 are your, halfway through the page on line 160 and 161. We have, actually a reduction in this line. This is due to change in personnel. It's the sped teacher salaries. A little further down on line 168 and 169 are your paraprofessional lines. There are some big changes there. We've only budgeted for 8 paras, whereas the current year we have, or when we budgeted for the current year, we had 11.
Okay.
So for AES. And then for ARD, last year or this current year, we had budgeted for 6. Next year, we're budgeting for 7. So there are some savings in those lines.
So are we asking questions now or are we asking
Whatever.
questions at
You
the
can
end?
ask questions.
Okay, so I know that this is all based on IEPs and the current. Are we comfortable with this drop in paras?
So it's based on what our current roster is. There's really no way to adequately predict exactly who's gonna move in and move out.
Yeah.
What I can say is through the grants, the ESSER grants, we have hired some additional educational assistants. Although they don't necessarily directly service just special ed students, they can help support them so that if we need to, and we're like in a situation where we are looking to hire, we will at least have support for those students in the interim. I can't say for sure whether or not how many we'll need next year.
No, that's super helpful though, Mike, to know that we've got some assistance through the grants, which we know are still carrying into next year, so we can keep that.
It's through
staff.
next year, correct?
Yes, through the end of next year.
Yeah, through the end of next year.
Yeah, it's 24.
Okay. Nope, you answered it with that. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move down to page 7, on line 184, not quite down. Same page, line 6, page 6, line 184, 186. There's an increase in sped contracted services that as usual is due to student-specific need. Those go up and down. It could change through this year and into next year, but that's what we're thinking we're going to do.
Good question. So, I always go to Karen for the breakdowns. Am I really going? Oh, it's still Karen. So am I going to Karen Gersha or am I going to the other Karen?
Contracted, well, it depends on the question. So if you want the actual breakdown, that would be Karen and Jess. If you had questions about it, I know about all of them.
No, Michael, the only thing, this is where I put in my sheets, like the breakdown of what's behavioral consultants, what's physical
Yeah.
therapists, what's, that'd be Karen Gersha.
Yeah.
Or Karen,
Yeah,
Karen
Karen.
and-
She'll give you all of it,
Yeah,
or Jessica
Karen will.
doesn't, but
Karen and Jess Bickford.
it's just Pittsburgh.
Just
Sorry,
that.
I thought it was, okay. All right, so go to Karen Gersha still for that breakdown.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
that way she can, because Jessica really won't know what to do, Karen's gonna have to show.
Okay,
So let's start with Karen.
okay, because it's the ask they do every single year, so.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep, we're doing that.
All right, on page 7. Let's see, we're on lines 192 and 194, that's summer special placements. That's going to be down a little bit, again, student-specific need. The lines that follow, 196 and 198, special placements. That's going to also be decreasing. Let's see. They're the big ones there. We go to page 9, which is going to be right at the top of the page, 280 lines 280 and 281, which is sped appraisal. There is an increase there. Also, student-specific needs, that is basically your diagnostics.
Sped appraisal is one that you might want to ask for
Ask Jess or ask Karen?
Karen.
Oh, yeah, it's the same ask. I
Yeah.
put it all in the same
Yeah.
email, Mike, because that's the one where I just break it down psychological and it's OT. It's just broken down
Yeah.
like 40, 50, something.
A little further down that page on line 306 and 307, that's the nurse salary. You're seeing a difference there because we've had a change in person. On page 12, we're going to jump ahead a little bit. Right to the middle of the page, we have on lines 436 and 437. That's the SA 253 district assessment. Your evaluation did not change from last year to this year. It stayed at 12.8. The only change that's occurring here is the SAU budget, which was an increase of 1.9.
Do we have that sheet in here? Amber?
You know what, I usually get that and
Yeah.
I missed it, so I apologize. I'll make sure it's in the next packet.
All right, thank you.
We'll put it in the drive, So if you have it, I don't know why I missed that, but I did. Apologize for that. All right, on page 13, we're gonna go down to line 471. That's the maintenance contracts. All of the software that's in these lines are SAU-wide software. So what happens is Josh goes out to bid for all of these vendors, and then he breaks it out per usage per school. Okay, so that's breaking out for those. So the increases you're seeing there are just software costs from those companies.
Oh, can I back this to 442?
442, you as you may, attorney, wait, no, 442.
Principal.
Principal, yes.
Yeah, so there's no increase?
Yep, and that's because.
Is that the pool that we do at the end?
No, that's principal salary, and that's because the multi-year contract is coming to an end.
All right, so that was part
So
of
the only one that has a multi-year contract that's still in, that goes to next year is the assistant.
Okay, so the multi-year contract is coming to an end, but before this process is all done, we gotta get that all solidified.
I have increases for you guys too. Yes, I have those for you too. I can put those in the drive. I did complete them today. Okay.
Okay, so we've gotta do the merit pool increase, and we've gotta do the contract for the principal.
Correct, and it's on there on the line free sheet that you'll see. I have broken out anyone that is not in a multi-year contract and anyone that is not covered by the CD.
Okay, so we're planning on doing that for the November 14th meeting?
Yeah, I'll have it in the drive for you guys. So you
Sure.
have it.
14. Oh,
Monday.
right, because that's our regular stuff. So I'm thinking,
Monday.
give the budget.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, so then just Peter can let me know. and
Sure.
I can get that in. the-
Sure.
Before I forget, December 10th is the, school presentation to Allenstown and NBC. So I sent that over to Patty to have her put it on the global calendar, and I sent that a long time ago.
It's
Okay.
in there. I'll be there.
Okay.
Let's see here, page 13, did I do this one already? Oh, no, it's not. Let's see here, lines 485 and 486 under communications. You're gonna see an increase there, and that's because, we covered some of those expenses with grant funding previously. So that will be ending, so we're anticipating having to actually spend those dollars.
Can you give a little more color on that, Amber? So
I wasn't
like,
involved in that, to be honest. I just know when I spoke with Josh this morning, that there were some grant dollars that covered that.
it's communications and it's Josh?
Yeah, it was internet. It was because of internet access.
It was.
So
internet.
because of
Oh, right.
COVID, yeah.
We have one more year.
So are you, do you have an activity for it?
Yeah, still.
Okay.
So
No,
that
I
can come
do
out?
that today, so.
Yeah,
So do you know how much it's going to cover?
I can look it up.
Yeah, you don't have to look it up right now, but if you could just shoot me an email, let me
Yep.
know, and I can make that change. But that is based off of what the monthly current rate is, so that's where that will came from.
So that,
That'll-
so that'll cover grant funding for next year. And then once that ends into the following year, this is internet access for our students?
It's expanded bandwidth, so it's the cost that we have incurred to expand the one-to-one throughout the
Yep,
whole district.
yep,
And like the smart TVs and all that other stuff that we've added,
yep.
we need to expand the bandwidth. So that has funding through our ESSER grants through the end of next school year. So this time next year, we'll have to have the
Well,
conversation.
so will the new building have this expanded access and this is going to be a moot point for next year's budgeting?
what do you mean by new point?
Well,
So it's like when you, like, it's like Comcast, when you subscribe to a package, you can subscribe to like
right, you
X
can upgrade,
gigabits per
yep,
month and up.
yep.
So this is, we went to the next tier.
So we would still need to pay for the new building.
Yeah, you'll still have a bill, a monthly bill.
Hmm. Where I was going was I thought it was because our technology in the building was a little lacking, so we needed to upgrade
Does
just
that,
because of the old technology.
Yeah,
What you're saying is it's really just internet bandwidth.
Amber, I have 6,000 budgeted in there.
6,000 budgeted?
Yeah.
Okay,
So that'll-
so I can reduce it by 6,000. Thank you. I like Josh Mitchell. I'm just gonna make a note on this too. I'll remember. Okay. The next one is on page 14, which is about halfway through down, it's on line 519 and 520. There's some increase in the custodial salaries in this line. There's been some slight change in personnel, but we've also added a part-time employee in that line. Again, because there was enough FTEs throughout the budget, this would make it into the default as well. We're not having any additional FTEs.
So what it's saying is we might have had a full timer before and now we've got 2 part-timers.
It doesn't have to be in the area, it just needs to be on your total budget roster. So technically, we've got some positions like paras that we are using that are reduced with this.
Right. Okay, gotcha. That,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be in that direct department, it just needs to be off your total. And if you add a position in the current fiscal year, technically that position really is under contract now. There's an argument for it to be next year.
oh yeah, we've had this argument.
Yes, we have.
Many times before.
Yes, we have.
And the state is so helpful with clarifying. That's sarcasm. We've hit this before.
Yes, we
Yeah,
have.
hit this- We remember. What's that? I said, I remember.
Oh, yes. All right, on the same page, down towards the bottom line, I'm gonna do a group of lines, line 532 to 542, that's your utilities. There are some increases in those for obvious reasons. There are hikes in those areas. We have locked down into a natural gas contract. That should help. Hopefully that doesn't, and we did that a while ago, actually, before some of this hike took place.
Who's that natural gas contract with? Is,
I don't remember.
is it all schools that buy into that?
No, we have the same company that was, it's like we use like a third party company to kind of help us lock in rates. And we did it with Pembroke Academy. At the same time I did it with Pembroke, I did it with Allenstown probably, I think I started that maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and every time they come up with some new rates, they send them to us. So actually Pembroke and Allenstown have benefited the most through our whole SAU, and we've been working on getting the other districts on board too. Deerfield now has one.
The reason why I'm asking about this, so Allenstown Municipal Budget Committee just met this past Saturday to start reviewing the town budgets. And this was a big point of discussion since everything is, up between electricity and gas and oil. And the town said that they buy through the, through the state, I think. I know they buy their fuel for their trucks from the state, but I could have sworn Derek said he was in some sort of a contract for natural gas too.
I'll have to look and see who it is, but what I will say is that the state isn't necessarily the cheapest. And I remember that when I worked for the college.
Yeah, they were for fuel for the, town.
For the,
Yeah,
for their.
yeah, for their diesel. So interesting. Okay.
So I can get you the details.
So Amber, it's not a case of towns and schools can buy into the same third party. Is it like the town of Allenstown and the school district of Allenstown enter into the same natural gas contract?
I mean, you would if you're not our village,
Okay,
so you gotta be careful with that. We did have an issue with that in one of my other districts.
with the town and the school being together?
No, that we had one in the works and the facility director didn't realize it and started entering into another contract.
Oh, okay, I see where you're going. Okay,
Yeah,
so
you
yeah,
have
that's
to
a lot
at
of
least
work.
make sure that you're through the period of time that you've already.
Yeah.
Now, how did it work as far as the contract, for instance, like, obviously, we're hoping that we would be in the new building in the second half of next year. So how does that work as far as this is concerned with the current contracts, and if there's any cost savings that would carry over if we did, let's say we did transition next February?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to have that conversation.
Okay.
With that third party that's helping us, secure our lower rate and let them know that we will be moving from one building or from two to one building, and I'm sure something would be worked out in that case.
Okay.
If there, that is most likely, I mean, you're changing buildings, whether no one goes to contract or whether it needs to be updated, but something most definitely would need to happen.
Right. So I would be curious if that would impact this budget or if
It will not impact this budget, it will impact the following. Because right now, this is gonna cover next year.
right.
So,
So like if there's a savings rather in one of these lines, it would just go towards our surplus at the
absolutely,
end of next year.
Yep.
Okay.
yeah, we only pay what we use.
Right.
And then anything else.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. All right, on page 16. We're gonna go halfway down the page again. This is gonna be your special ed transportation costs on line 614 and 615. Summer transportation is anticipated to go down.
The line you're talking
Okay, 615 to 616, well, 616, right down through 619. So we have some savings, in the first grouping of special ed transportation, and then some is going. What you're seeing here is it looks like we're not budgeting any money. We are, it's really just shifted to the line below. So what was happening, which I wasn't aware, they were breaking the 518 and the 519 up by vendor. And it doesn't need to be broken up by.
Okay.
And so one of the vendors is not, providing transportation for us, so the other vendor is, and that's why it's budgeted in the fund. So it's not that we're losing transportation, it's that we're utilizing one vendor instead.
So are you getting away from this line item being vendor specific, Amber?
I would like to, but it's not necessary. Because I didn't know the nitty gritty of what they were budgeting for that, because I'm not allowed to really know the nitty gritty of it. I didn't realize it was per vendor. So I'm gonna be, and it's not just Allenstown, it's every district. Okay, they're moving on.
Yeah,
Absolutely. We don't budget by vendor in any other, we certainly do not need to budget by vendor. And
Sure.
so yes, we will. So really what we could do if you want actually in that line is I can take out the ones, because that budget line will continue until it is a $0 for 3 years.
I say that.
So the budget line does not disappear for new people that for this budget, will not disappear from your budget until there's been $0 budgeted for 3 years consecutive.
Is that a default mandate or is that just a school budgeting mandate?
No, that's, yeah, by the school,
That's the
not
thing.
by us, yeah.
Okay. And so I say get rid of it now, since this takes 3 years.
We'll put dollars,
Yeah.
zeros in there.
Yeah. 0 and out, please, and then I have another question I can get with you. So where I was going with that, and then I'm gonna back up a little bit too.
Regular transportation,
What's that?
is he gonna go to regular transportation?
Nope, I'm gonna go with the customer. But my question to you is, and sorry, I'm just kind of logging this one over. So for the new school board members in the account line, I don't know who said this, 101 is ABS and 102 is ARD. That's why you see the same lines twice. How is this going to look, Amber, to solidify everything down to one once we get into the new school?
I mean, that will be, you know, a conversation the principal and the superintendent need to have on whether we need 1 or 2, or, I mean, that's really with any staff that you have when you're moving to a one building.
Yep.
You know, what will you need to function?
But in light of what you just said though about the 3-year thing, if we were to, because we can't just eliminate a line, right? Like, do we have to keep it open for 3 years? Say we eliminated the 102 lines. Would we have to keep those open for 3 years?
So, well, no, I don't know. I'm gonna, no, we shouldn't, because I did this with, well, didn't we? I'm trying to go back and think about village. If I have to keep that open.
I'm just lobbing it up there for thinking.
Well,
We
no,
don't need to-
Jen and I have had this conversation because about what, you know, when we merge to one building, we don't need multiple lines.
Right.
The reason why I think I kept it in the budget for at least a year or 2 was so that there was some history from the old building.
Okay.
Because I
Oh,
think that's a village.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So otherwise, it looks like you've inflated your lines when you
Yeah.
actually did them.
yeah.
They were in different lines.
Right.
I know at least a year I carried them.
for
But
transparency.
they were zeros in
Yep.
all of the 105 ones, which was village.
Yeah,
And then all of the Hill School looked like it was overinflated, but it really wasn't.
yep.
So at least for 1 year, but I think if we move to 2, I think we could probably argue the fact that after a year has passed, we could probably move to 1 year.
Okay.
But I will double check with the Department of Ed and Revenue on, because when I think it's more of a Department of Revenue issue, because when I do my state reporting, it is not broken out between elementary and middle school. Everything is rolled into elementary school, so the coding is more what we've done here. I
Yeah,
think there's really only one section for the entire MS 25 that has you break out middle school.
Yep.
And if you're moving to a K-8 building, the middle school no longer technically exists. And with the Department of Ed, Allenstown is a K-8 school. It's not an elementary, middle school breakout.
Right.
Which
So
is
it's
why I
not
don't
changed,
report it that way.
right.
It just happens to be 2 buildings.
Yeah, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, it's food for thought, since, but this is
Yep.
way beyond me, because I will no longer be.
No, Shannon and I have actually been talking about this for 2 years,
Okay,
and we approached it again this year.
okay, but I do like the history though, you know, so
Yeah.
that's, so again, I'm not in this role in the following budget.
Yep.
So to have someone who takes this over, sees, and even as the board, the new
Yeah,
board members.
that's why I
can see it.
recommend at least
Yeah.
1 year.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep, and then that also gets the municipal budget committee to get used to seeing the 0, but it's up over here, and they're much more well versed.
Exactly.
But I wanted to back you up to line 598, the crossing guards.
Yep.
So the default number is different.
I changed it in mine, and I didn't
Yeah,
reprint it.
all right,
So I
cool.
think that's already been fixed.
All right, so that is the 6408.
Yep, I fixed it.
And then same thing, Amber, on 605 and 607, the transportation contracts.
Yes.
I know we talked about this last year,
Well, let me tell you
why
why.
it isn't the contractual
Yes,
or
so,
default.
yes, so I should have backed up, I should have put that in my notes to talk about that. I don't know what's been decided for transportation for next year yet. Right now, we're in an extended year contract. So I'm budgeting in the proposed as if we're gonna maybe extend it another year, but they may increase it. And I did a 7% increase Because that seems to be kind of what inflation's going on.
Yep.
With
Okay, so
that
this
said, if we go back out to bid and we do not extend the contract, your current year budgeted amount would be what we wanted. So depending on what the board decides, that number could change. If you decide to try to extend the contract, then I will change the default to match the proposed. But if you're gonna go back out to bid, then I need to leave it as is.
Okay, so why don't, yeah, I know.
No, so only because it's the same putting it out to a new potential contract, whether you put it out to bid or whether you extend.
No,
It's still a
no.
contract, it's not.
It's not. The only thing that carries into default are multi-year contracts. Once you enter into a new one, you got a whole new contract.
Okay,
So it's not.
it's not, okay.
So
It's not that as long as you have a contract that exists.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the light bulb goes
Yeah.
off. I thought it was just a contract had to
Okay.
exist.
No.
So should we be discussing that in our November meeting?
Yeah, you should
What we
decide,
plan to
like,
do?
what you want to do,
Okay.
whether you want to talk with, our current provider and see if they're willing to extend it another year, or whether you want to put this back out to bid. This is a conversation I have to have with all the districts, because everybody's in the same.
We've been talking about this though at the
I know.
whole SAU for 6 months now.
Well, we did, and the last time we discussed it, we were extending the contract, and that's what got us to where we are today with the contract.
I know,
Not
but
for the phone.
I know, but we've kicked the can, I feel like we've kicked the can down the road again, so that from a timing perspective, do we even have the ability to put it out to bid?
Well, we always have the ability. We're
Right.
just gonna-
No, I mean from a budgetary perspective.
You won't have a final number now.
Yeah, so that's why I
I
feel
mean,
like,
essentially, we just have to go with the 101.
Correct, correct, that's correct.
well, but if you said
It would be-
the proposed is a 7% increase, and that's if we just extend the
Yeah,
contract.
and I don't know whether it's 7%, but I have to guess what they.
Right.
Well, because here's the other thing, I mean, we've talked extensively that the busing companies can't hire anybody. You can't get any busing company to submit a bid proposal. So I just think the natural progression is to just extend the contract, because they're the only ones that can do it at this point. So
But prior to this, we did a multi-year contract, right? Did
We
just
said
ex-
in a multi-year contract says.
Yeah, so we just extended because our contract was ending, we weren't sure of the direction we were gonna take.
Right, and you can carry into default because your current contract is just continued.
Right.
So if we vote to just extend, then we can have the 108,968 carry into default? There's the answer right there.
Exactly, yeah.
Do you want me to change?
Yeah.
So we're not gonna talk about that, right?
No, I mean, yeah, I mean,
It doesn't make, I know.
it doesn't
We
make
don't really
any
have any
sense.
other options,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, if you change your mind down the road,
Exactly.
if you change your mind.
Right, but I
You're
mean,
looking into
we're kind of
this,
stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, but I
It's
mean,
either we buy buses and hire, run our own bus
which
transportation.
we said no.
Exactly.
Yeah, we
So
said,
it's like, we really don't have a choice.
No, we don't have a
It makes
choice.
more sense, just, okay.
I think at this point with the bus driver shortage,
Now, how does it work? Have we looked at what the potential savings and or additions with the new building might look like? Because how does that, like, obviously halfway through the year next year, let's just say we have to bus more students, we go into a deficit, obviously, and that,
I have not, I'm sure probably the project is probably done, I have not seen anything about it. I have not seen any numbers.
So I did some research on this when we were doing the school proposal, and what we looked at is having 2 of the buses pick up at our largest.
twice, right? Or
Yeah.
something? Yeah.
So Holiday Acres, which is, like 1.5 miles from the school.
Right.
And Catamount, which is 1.5 miles in the other direction.
Right.
They would drop off the first load or drop off those kids and then go out and do the run. Most likely they would drop off all the other kids they picked up and then buzz out and pick those kids up because those are our biggest stops.
but that's still incurring gas, though, additional.
Have
Yeah,
you
I mean-
spoken with our provider about what the
I
cost?
have, I talked to, probably a year and a half ago. I mean, it's have a conversation with her again, but we talked about, that as an option instead of adding buses.
Right, which would be significantly.
Yeah, which
Right.
I like that option. I
do.
just want to make sure that we have enough money for the increased bills. If that starts in April of 2024, they've got to do that for 3 months. I can't imagine they're not going to bill us with that extra.
Right, so if we are extending the contract, we kind of need to,
So
we
when
wouldn't be
they,
able to extend the contract, we probably would have to change the.
well, they would just amend it, which is
Okay.
okay. Because what they've done for other districts, YSIU, I want to speak to that, is that when we've had to do what that's considered a double run, is they would charge a flat fee for the double.
Okay,
So it's not a whole nother bus fee. It
Right.
might be a 180, I'm just throwing it, I'm not saying, don't quote me on this, but like $185 for that one.
okay,
Do you know what
Per
I'm saying?
day or per week or?
Per run, so per day. So I don't, that's just a number, I'm not saying that's the number, I'm using it as an example.
right,
Yeah.
But yes, it's like a flat fee
Sure.
that they charge for other districts for any additional runs that they've had to do. And we have had to do it. for the other districts.
Can we get that solidified, Shannon, please? Because again, I want to make sure it's in the budget and then in default so that we're.
I'll work on that and then,
Well,
I'll
those
have that
runs
next-
wouldn't start till 2024, correct?
Yeah,
Right.
but if we go,
So it won't be in.
Oh, wait, so this, yeah, so let me think, this is for.
yeah, this is 23, 24.
yeah, but it
so
would,
next
it,
year.
it would be next year,
June
So everything in
Next year's
this
budget.
is gonna come into play. in
next
this
year.
When are the opening is full?
budget. The proposed date right now is April vacation to make that move, so the
So it would
budget.
be that couple months?
Yeah,
Yes,
But that might move back to September.
Yeah.
It might, I mean, there's no.
right, you're
I
right,
would be stressed.
we're not gonna move it until September of 2024.
Well, that's not our hope, but I mean,
The
there
hope
are,
is April.
the hope is April.
My boss always says hope is not a strategy.
Yeah, it is not.
Well, but, so, but I'm trying to like, so we're talking maybe 20, well, for May and June, we'd be talking maybe 35 school days, 30 school days.
Yeah, probably it'd be a little bit.
I mean,
So
you could
35
certainly get
times
that.
185 bucks a day, that's almost $6,500.
I'll talk to them.
Okay, yes, please.
And
it's
I'll have
September.
that for the, want me to put that in my board report for the 14th?
if you can, I mean, if you don't, if
That's fine.
you can't get an answer by then.
But it's September of 2024?
Well, no, we're hoping it's April, stop saying September,
Well, because I'm not here in September.
you'll have to come back and see us.
That's why I'm kind of sad.
Oh, just the reason to come.
Exactly,
Yes.
she's like, if you want to wear the party, you've got to come back.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. I'm sorry, I'm lamenting on that. That was just the first time that I've heard about that. Okay, so I'm totally comfortable, with the crossing guard, that's all done, and then transportation contract, and I think we're good that we know that we're gonna stick with extending the contract and putting that in default. Okay.
And hey, I'm sorry, I don't mean to go back, but I actually probably should add then the bus transportation to the agenda on 11/14 for even informational purposes. Or should we just talk about it on 11/21? When we discuss the budget again? Because I've taken it off the ad for next agenda, but I'm just wondering if we
Oh, it was
should.
on the agenda?
Well, I was going to add it.
Oh.
Remember we were talking about what do we do with the contract?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
extend it, And then we decided, so we'll just talk about 11/21?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm-
Are we gonna go, is the plan to have Amber do all these changes and then put the budgets back in and we talk about this on the 14th again?
I would like to because we only have,
I can do that.
Yeah. And then I have, just so the board knows, I have asked Amber potentially to attend the 21st meeting, the 11/21 meeting, just because that's really our only working session, then we're gonna finalize the budget. But she's not sure if she's available, so she's gonna get back to me.
Okay.
But I'm thinking like having her here to be able to answer questions, because we don't have a bunch of working sessions.
Because we've got to present, right, and the administrators and Amber have to present Saturday the 10th.
Right, and so we have a meeting the 7th, I think it is it the 7th?
No, I don't have that on my calendar.
I thought we tentatively put that in. Wait, let me look. No, I'm sorry. I don't know why I was thinking the 7th.
Yeah, I
So,
only had
so
a,
that's why I was saying to Amber, it's like super crucial that maybe she be at our next meeting, so if the 21st isn't available, she isn't available, we may have to play with that date a bit,
yeah,
because we only have that meeting.
yeah, we've got to approve it in order for me to go forward.
So
and
my
put
ask
this on.
was, which I think you were present, Chris, I think, was Chris present when we tried to do that working session where we had to run on it? No, I'm not sure.
Well,
What I was asking was,
Yeah, she was. on
was she
the-
there? Yeah, I don't remember. Where what I was thinking of having Amber do the Excel spreadsheet or make the changes as we talk about them in the meeting on the 21st, so that we can have an idea
Oh,
of what those final numbers are. Obviously, knowing with the caveat that she's gonna have to make sure there's no errors, double check herself, make corrections if necessary. But I feel like it's really super crucial that she be there to make those changes,
And so-
additions, subtractions, whatnot.
And you guys just said that Amber cannot make.
Well, she's not
I
sure,
don't
she's
know,
checking.
I have my whole calendar set out because I was supposed to just go there first.
Yeah.
So can you let me know that maybe tomorrow if possible? So that I can send out a meeting, a message to the board and we can make sure that we change that date if it's not going to work for you. Maybe give me a few dates that would work. If the 21st doesn't work, I'm saying. Could you send me an email, it won't work, and then maybe a few additional dates that we could potentially play with that will work within your schedule? Okay, perfect.
Well, yeah, maybe Amber and I can talk about options.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
Would,
But I have more, but I meant on that.
None of these pages.
Okay, page 16, I'm still on page 16. At the very, very bottom, for health insurance, 636 and 639. I don't know why that says in position, but that's not. So right now, I'm estimating a 7% increase for that. That's really based off of increases we received last year. We do not receive the rate until around November 11, 12, that week. So right now I can only put an estimate of what we think we're gonna be.
Sure.
But this is based off of what our roster is and the health plans that are currently going on right now. Could those change? Yes. So you do see a reduction in this line, even though I've increased it by 7%, and that is because of personnel change and plan changes. Okay. The next page is on dental, 641 and 643. We do know what the increase will be for that. That is 1.5%. So that is the actual number. That number shouldn't change unless we have a roster change or I find out somebody's changed their health benefit or their dental benefit. So there, again, while it's going up, there are decreases in this line because of personnel and plan changes. The other big change that's happening here, as we talked about at the full SAU meeting, board meeting, is the New Hampshire retirement was changing. So the certified staff is going from 21.02 to 19.64. And the non-certified staff is going from 14.06 to 13.53. So those are both coming down, so we're seeing some savings there. Yeah, as we know that's rarely the one
Right,
thing.
we'll celebrate.
It's usually
Yeah.
an increase or staying stagnant, but we are seeing increases in some.
Hey, Peter, what's the chatter on this? Because they keep messing around with this. So 2 years ago, they nailed us to the cross because it went from 17.8 up to 21.02. Like that 4% killed our budget. So here they are, 2 years later, messing with it again. Like, what's the chatter on this with the retirement system?
I didn't even know that it was happening until all of a sudden I'm seeing.
I didn't either. Yeah, this is ridiculous.
I wish I had an answer for, sometimes they do that for years. Later, our organization piece changes,
Yeah.
and it goes back now. So I would hate to throw a guess on it.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is that they probably looked at what their overall pool was, and then I think they also, they had a surplus in their retirement, so I think they actually gave some funding out in another form as well. that every district received back, I believe, and then maybe they're doing the rate change, I'm not sure. That'd be my guess. I don't know what drives it.
Yeah, it's just in the 8 years I've been doing this, they didn't touch it. And then all of a sudden they hit us with that whammy of 21.02. And then it's a little frustrating that they're now putting it down again, just because it's stupid, which is what the taxpayer needs, this
Right.
up and down and stuff. So that's why I was just curious.
And it's not just,
It's municipalities.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
I got it.
I'll try and get some information.
Yeah, it's not necessarily information, Peter. It's more along the lines of discussion, maybe at the superintendent that maybe floats up into the legislature, like, or at a BA level, that.
I haven't, honestly, like I said, when I saw the email come through, I had to like reread it a few times. So I'm like, is this real?
It's just.
And then I tried to look online to see if I could find some information about it, and I really couldn't. So I don't know where it was coming from. I actually went to, the Department of Revenue, New Hampshire Retirement website to see if, am I supposed to be getting this?
Yeah.
Because of that reason.
And so once again, Amber, the non-certified, you said is 13.53%?
Correct. Yep.
Because that's not in the comments on here.
No, and the reason for that being, I guess I can add that underneath, the non-certified don't technically get, their New Hampshire retirement, they get it in the form of an annuity.
Yeah,
And so they get, I think it's like $500 per,
yeah.
so that's why it's not listed here, because they're not technically getting.
But that annuity number must be run by the state if it's gone down to 13.5.
It's by your CBA. Or whatever agreement's been made, I think it's like $500 per employee or something.
Yeah, so how do we get the percentage though?
It's not a percentage, this is by employee.
No, what I'm saying is how do we get the 13.53% if we just quote it?
The safety.
Okay, so,
I'm telling you in general, certified was this rate, non-certified is that rate, because that's for every non-certified, regardless of the school you're in. I'm just giving you what the rates are. It doesn't necessarily apply to you. But you
oh,
always ask me, okay, well, what's non-certified, so that's why I'm providing. But
so
in this particular case, you guys handle it differently than some other schools.
for 7 years though, I've been telling them what the rate is for non-certified staff, but that's really not right because they don't
You don't
get.
have a retirement line for non-certified.
I've been putting that in my presentation for 7 years now. And it's really just a set number.
It's really, you're focusing on the certified staff.
Mhm. Okay, I'll take that out of mind. Everybody's gonna ask, they just get a figure.
And let's see here. Food service. This is online 677. So you see a savings here. You also see two different numbers. Your food service budget is on page 42. So a couple of things with this. So I'm gonna back up a quick second. I'm working on closing out, so I'm a little behind. But what I do know is that the food service program has a surplus. All our SAU, districts actually have a surplus. And then that is because of the funding that we receive. Because I have not closed, this is an estimate, but approximately $62,000 in surplus for food service.
Is it state surplus or is it the
No,
federal?
it's surplus for Allenstown.
Is that 62,000? Estimate of 62,000.
No, but again, I thought I just heard it was because of the state.
No, because the state was paying for lunches this last year, so.
Well, the DOE, right?
Right, the DOE has funded the program. The revenue that came in was greater than the expenses that we. So there's a savings in here. I had a conversation with Shannon about my strategy was to not complete that in all 1 year. So what my thought was is we would use about half of it to offset what the budget was. And then we would save some for the following year, so it wasn't such a big hit. With that said, originally when I first started this, I had this offset to be 5,000. You're not seeing 5,000 under the proposed. The reason for that being is because the food service program is requesting to add a half position. Because they're adding a half position, I offset the surplus moving that way. So in default, that position would make it in because it's a different program. And so that's $5,000. That's where we're seeing that $5,000 there, but not in that.
Okay, I'm a little confused. So the 23,729
Yep.
has been greatly reduced because of the surplus.
So their overall budget is less than what this current year is. What we're proposing for next year is less. Okay, so let's start there. So we started with the first point was the overall budget is less than what we currently have. That's because of staff change, personnel change, really that drove that. And so whatever fringe benefits that went along with it. So that provided some savings. Okay, so there's one savings. Okay, so because of that, we really only had to offset the budget by about $5,000 because I'm utilizing some surplus. You'll see it if you want to go to the 42. You'll see it.
Yeah.
Let's go to page 42.
Which,
Okay, now, and the colors didn't come over on this one, so I want to change those colors. So columns K and L, okay, so we're anticipating getting about $1,400 additional revenue than we're currently net for this fiscal year in your top section, lines 6 through 15. Okay, and then in this next section, right on line 19, that transfer from the general fund. That's the one where we usually have about 40, 50, sometimes 60,000 in there to cover. The reason why I put the 23 is because right below it, where it says offset by fund balance, I'm utilizing 31,000 of your surplus to offset this budget, so that your operating budget doesn't have such a drastic. Okay, that allows your revenue to balance out what your expenditures are. Okay, it always has to net to zero for this budget. So in order to net to zero, we're gonna utilize some funding from operating, and we're gonna utilize some funding from the fund balance for the surplus.
Yep, totally got you there.
Okay.
What I'm still confused however is how come the 23,729 doesn't carry over into the default?
Because it is an added position. You're
So
adding
this
a staff member.
Okay, so this 2379
Encompasses that staff member.
is full staffing cost.
Plus the 5,000 I had originally put in.
Staffing cost plus, and the 5,000 is just the number that,
That's the number I
Yeah.
utilized here. I
That's
thought, okay, yeah.
oh, yeah, 23, okay.
So originally I was starting with 5,000 when I was doing the budget, and then when I received the food service request,
Yep.
that was over beyond what I had first originally planned. I can do whatever you would like, but that was my strategy.
Yeah.
No, it makes sense.
No, I got you.
And I
So,
really would highly recommend, maybe I change my wording, that we do not deplete the food service budget. It's always, it's very difficult to, this is not a sustainable program for any food service, really. And Allenstown in general has not been. We need to get closer to that bottom line, so I would prefer for you not to have a large hit next year if you could.
I agree.
well, so what you're,
Hopefully we have surplus this year too, but we'll see what happens.
but what you're saying though is you're still gonna carry surplus of about 30,000 into the next year too.
That's what I'm saying.
So this 31 is half of the surplus that you're seeing now. And we're able to carry it over, is it because of the goal, you'll just put it over?
Because it is not, anything that is outside Fund 1 can roll to another.
Ah, which is,
So like donations, let's take donations for instance, and that's a good example. So when they get donations for, a trip.
Yep.
I create a totally separate fund, that money goes in, only the revenue for that goes in there, only the expenditures come out of that. And anything that's left over at the end of the year automatically rolls over. So when you're looking at your MS form,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
there are several columns. The first column is your Fund 1, the second column is your food service, the third column column is all your, what they call special accounts, which are your grants and any of these extra other funds that might be. So for instance, when I do your MS form, your new building is gonna show up in that third column because it's under Fund 2, it's not under Fund 1.
Oh.
Yeah.
What who deems it that says anything not Fund 1 can roll into another year? Is that DRA?
Yeah, it's not, it's definitely not.
No, that is,
Other things.
I didn't know if it was DOE,
Yeah.
DRA.
They're considered a special account, which allows them to roll. So, and there are some things in your operating budget that may also be able to do that, such as the bond, where we had a couple, like last year, when we talked about how we had budgeted for the interest payment the prior year, but didn't utilize it. Because that was a special warrant article, that automatically would continue until it's exhausted.
Yeah.
So there are special
Right.
cases.
Yeah.
I remember, yeah.
Yeah, totally gotcha.
Make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
I gotcha.
And so that's concerns. I would like to back up a second because I completely missed the bond lines. Did I?
No, those are next, those are next.
Actually not this time.
Those are next.
Okay, so you're gonna see a large increase here. The reason being is because we are offsetting the current year. If you remember, we had to do some brainstorming last year because the interest payment was budgeted in the prior year and the bond schedule that the bond bank gave me was not
Accurate.
correct. They gave you one that started in July and it needed to start in January.
Mhm.
So
I
we
remember.
brainstormed that, we offset that, so it looks like we have a large increase, but we really don't, it's because we're utilizing dollars we already approved.
Yeah, I just want everybody to be abundantly clear, because the town is gonna think that we're going up, but it's because of what Amber just said. So if you look at the 22-23 voted of 486, 810, that should have been 811, 810.
Right.
If that,
But
because, yeah,
with that said, even if we were to think back, this is really the first year we're getting the full, the hit.
yeah,
So if you went back to the schedule, you really only get hit for that once.
Yeah.
It's just happening next year
yeah,
because of what's transpired in the last year.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep, again, I want everybody to be abundantly clear, the bond payments have not gone up.
No.
Right.
They're
They have
still the same.
Right.
Correct.
It's because of what Amber was able to do to take that 325,000 that you see in column U
Mhm.
that we never had to pay for, but she was able to apply that once she got the new bond schedule. Because again, she just said it's a different fund, so it could have carried over from year
It
to year.
looks expended. It's not expended, it's encumbered.
It's encumbered.
Okay, so in order for me to bring it to the next year, I have to at least encumber it so
Right.
that I can then apply the expense to it this year.
Right. I'm just trying to make it abundantly clear to everybody, it is not going up. So that when we do the budgets next year, it's all the same, 811,
Yep.
10.
Correct, it should just be, I would not, the word minimal is the word I want to use, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
gonna
the
be a
same.
drastic change.
Yeah, because it's all fixed, right? It was fixed one
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
So we've got that 811 and change for the next.
And what I will
19,
do, yeah, and
18 years.
you'll, in the, when we do the MD, when we have the MBC binders, make the bond schedule.
Okay, good. Yeah, it was in it.
Yeah, I'll make sure it gets in there.
Because that's where I went to get my information for today.
Amber, can you put together a note like that too as well?
Yeah, because we'll definitely want to make sure we.
You know, see, especially in the binders for the
Yep.
VC.
Yep.
What you both just said, it'd be great to have a paragraph so they
Sure.
can look at that and say, got it.
Well, and I've got it on my spreadsheet as well, which again, this is the thing that goes to everybody. So I've got that same exact write-up.
So having it in the binders, because people have the binders from year to year.
Well, what I can do is, so in the binder, when we have it, I can have a sheet that is in front of it. That gives the descriptor of the bond schedule and the payments for that particular year. And then when they flip it over, they'll be able to see, and what I'll do is I'll highlight the years it's pertaining, because the bond schedule, the numbers all kind of flow together and because.
Well, they're weird. They're February, August,
Yes.
February, August, and it's really hard to disseminate
It is,
now.
so I'll highlight them so that they pop out for what the expenses are for next year. I used to do that for Cornwall too, because they have lots of.
Question for you, and I don't know if we're getting there, but where, do you have anything else to?
No, no.
Because I have a question for
No,
like,
we're anticipating a little bit more grant funding for next year, grant dollars, but other than that, that's pretty much what I had for my.
sure. So I just had a question on where you have the budget increase with the bond, the
Yes.
4.48, and then budget increase without the bond, and then obviously, so don't you usually put together a dollar, like, don't we usually have a dollar amount associated with that?
It's up there.
It is.
It's
What's
in
the
your
same?
difference, it's in X.
It's in, if you look at 686.
I'm sorry. Yes,
So what I basically did is I just subtracted that out from our bottom balance to come up with my percentage.
right. But Chris, do we usually figure out, I'm saying the dollar amount for tax rate?
No.
Yeah,
No, we don't do that till.
Yeah, that's a little down.
But I thought we usually figured it out when we were talking about the budget for like a rough estimate for our,
Yes, we're just not there yet. I don't even
Yeah.
have your estimated revenue yet.
Yeah.
oh, right, because we're still waiting to close out, that's why.
Well,
I'm
you know,
sorry.
not even just for next year. I haven't
Right.
created the estimated money. I need that, some of the numbers on that should go on my estimated revenue.
Right,
In order to calculate even the tax rate, I need their tax rate setting before.
right.
It's until December that she has.
Right,
Yeah, it's
and I was
normally in
thinking,
December.
yeah,
We usually have it for the first presentation though, for the NBC.
that's what I thought, yeah, because I know we had the discussion before
Oh,
that.
you
Yeah,
will
December
definitely
10th.
have it.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah. And if it's not at a meeting, it'll end up in the, you know,
Yeah.
I'll put a descriptor.
I don't know how you keep things straight, because year to year, like, it's like,
We've been
I don't
doing
know,
this for so
what's
long.
what, where's what. It's
I've been
like-
doing this for so long, it's like,
Multiplied by 5.
yeah.
Okay,
So,
so,
yeah, I just wanted to kind of illustrate, because when someone looks at this and they see 4.48, they're gonna be like, "Oh." So I wanted to illustrate why.
No, right. absolutely. Okay, so from a board perspective, do we now want to go back and go through lines and kind of see if we have any questions lined
Oh,
up?
I already did all mine, sorry.
Okay, no, that's why.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I don't think I have.
Okay,
And we put descriptors in, Shannon had a bunch of notes that she added, I added them in underneath. To know, some of the notes, I just want to say, mostly towards the end that are in like the field trip.
Yeah,
Some of those lines don't, if you add up the amounts, they don't add necessarily to the total in the line.
I just needed it
The
to be
reason
divided
for
by
that
twice.
means is because what's in the budget is what the teachers are requesting, but what's recommended is, am I correct in that? Is that
yeah,
what I said?
so we talked a little bit about this the past couple of years in terms of field trip requests. So, for example, I have one grade level that has requested $3,000 for admission costs for field trips, and then an additional $1,600 for buses. Whereas other grade levels have just, requested 600 or 550. So, I think last year we had a set amount for each grade level, and then if they chose to do something above and beyond that, that would require more, input from the families or fundraising or something like that. So for example, on line 330, which is the AES line, the teachers requested 62.30, whereas my recommendation would be like a flat rate of $700 for each grade. So
Okay.
that everybody has the same amount to work with.
Say that one more time, Shannon. So the teachers requested
So
what?
what you see in the blue on line 330 is the 6,230. That is the actual amount requested by the teachers. My note below, because this is something that we did last year, is a set amount for each grade level. So if that would be a difference of like $3,000 and change if you go with the flat rate for each grade level, or you entertain, 3,000 for 4 field trips in one grade level, and 300 in another grade level for in-house field trips. It just depends on what,
Okay, this is too confusing for me because the
That's
line
why I
items aren't matching the numbers.
that's what I'm saying. So I can either take leave in what the teachers are requesting. Just so you know that there's a large variation in what teachers are requesting for field trips. Or we follow the model that we've done the past couple of years, which is just a set amount for each grade level.
Okay, I want to follow what administrators are saying though. So if you guys are not recommending what the 6,230, that's what I want to know.
So my recommendation would be to go with a set amount for each grade level.
Which you're saying 700 for each grade level.
Correct.
Okay.
And then that equates to what?
Then that equates to
So-
3,500. So I can
Okay,
send,
I need that changed then.
yeah, we can do that. We've done it a couple of different ways in the past, but the past couple of years, we've done the set amount for each grade.
And then if there's extra, then it just goes to the, like, you guys keep track of the requests and you keep track of your budget line.
Right.
So that it works out, because if one teacher doesn't have, or one class doesn't have full $700, some of that can flow over to the third grade or another grade.
Right.
Yeah, that's
And
what I
then
was.
I did the same thing in the field trip transportation line.
Yes.
So I will send those updated numbers to Amber and get rid of those notes.
Yeah.
Okay, which is 629 and 631.
632, yeah, or 631, yeah.
Or, yeah.
Yep.
And
Yes.
question, because we talked about the 8th grade class trip.
Yes, so I
Is that
did-
in there?
Yes.
The additional
So
funds?
I increased that to 11,000.
Oh, I see, okay.
Because I believe the requests or the quotes that we got this year for the bus was like 10,000.
Right.
Change.
Okay, yep,
So, I did make that increase.
okay.
And then again, I did the same thing, set amounts for each grade level, and then if they want to go above, and they can do that.
That makes sense.
Okay, so Amber, I will send you those updated
Thank you.
notes and numbers.
Are there any other lines where the notes don't match?
You'll
the-
want to just email me because I walked down the budget so that.
No, I
can
will.
track
Oh, no,
changes.
I don't want.
Once we get this one, I'll log it down.
Are there any other lines that don't jive up between the dollars?
Is the co-curricular one, is that in?
No, I think that one was fine.
That's the only one I could think of.
No, that was, I think you're thinking of the field trips assembly too.
Could be.
I don't think there were any others that did.
I'll double check.
Do we have an extra copy?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Oh, you can have this one.
Oh, yeah.
I brought my.
Oh, I have one right
Oh,
now.
you have one?
Okay.
I made enough for
So we just
everybody.
got done, Amber summarized, kind of.
So can I ask about the rosters? Because last year I was able to like cross-reference and we had some issues last year. Are you guys pretty confident on these rosters this year? And I'm still gonna go through
Yeah,
them.
we met with, Peter met with Shannon and Mike and with our HR director and met with them. I also cross-referenced them from last year's roster to this year, so we did some multiple.
With the bond, yes.
So, Mike and I went through them. We made our
Right.
changes. I went to the SAU, met with Peter and Colleen.
Okay.
She made the
Yeah.
changes. I will go back through one more time and then I kept my draft and I could go back and just verify that everything's been.
Please.
Yep, we'll definitely.
Thank you.
Just-
Okay. Well,
I did find one this morning when I was going through them again. One of the, and it didn't check the number, but the FTE was listed as, 0.25, and should have been 5.5. But it didn't affect the number, it must have been, so, it wasn't a driver of changing.
Is that the tech and library?
It was.
Because they are 0.25.
No, it wasn't, it was the sped secretary.
They're a half-time employee,
It's
so
the half-time employee?
Mhm.
Well, that's interesting, then in last year, it must have not been correct, because it's the same exact dollar value.
yeah, so what probably wasn't correct is, wait, what do you mean with last year's wasn't correct? Didn't it say 0.25 last year? Oh, well, it should have been.
0.5, that's what was the.
It totals 0.5 between the two lines.
The two between, so it should be 0.25, 0.25,
Correct.
change that. Like I said, it didn't change the amount, but it didn't change the FTE in here. But that means the loss from last year is.
And then, so we're going through contract negotiations too.
Yep.
Um,
Those amounts do not go in there, that goes in a warrant article.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
So it'll go into the budget after it's been voted.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So anything that's part of a contract, the dollar amount for that salary should remain the same unless there's been some change with administration has made.
Yep. Okay. Okay.
So I'll make sure, so I will add the
So-
increases in there. I will get you, the other thing I'm waiting on to put in here, I usually have for you is the trust funds. I, am waiting for the town to send me the 630 balances, so I can update the profit and loss on those. So once I have that, hopefully that'll be in there for the next meeting.
Are you good, Amber, with getting the information, or is it stalled?
No,
Or
I mean, they're usually pretty good.
because we have a new finance director.
Yep, and I have that contact. To be honest, I went to go do it today, and I went back to my email to see if I could find it, and I couldn't, so I just emailed them this morning. So
Okay.
I'm not concerned at this point if I get it. No, it's not really. So you'll definitely have that for the next time, and then I'll make sure this assessment is in there for you. We should have health rates by then, hopefully. So there'll be some changes, you'll have tuition number by then, so there'll be some changes for sure that'll come through that are just estimates at this point.
So I am gonna, well, do you have any questions? I just summarized it really quickly, but.
No,
I can put this in there too if you want.
that would be great.
This is all the notes
Yeah.
I basically read today. I
Awesome.
put that in the drive, if that's helpful.
Thank you, yeah.
I thought that was in here.
That's the
No,
default
it's in
notes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Those are all the changes for the default.
Gotcha.
So I guess the direction for the board, like typically at this point, we may say to the administrators, do we want them to, decrease this budget by a certain percentage? Do we want to present this budget as it currently stands, or, look to present it as it currently stands? Do we have any discussion, concerns with increases, any of that? Anybody?
Good.
I mean, like I mentioned before, I'm still working on closing out, so, getting there. Hopefully, I have to stop in between to get all these budgets done too, so I'm working on them. But when I just looking at the fund balances, as I mentioned earlier, it looks like approximately the district will end FY 21-22 with about 900,000. So that will be going back to offset taxes. You had $50,000 worth of warrant articles, and then you had $100,000 worth of retained. And let me note something. I hate to throw out a very large number like that without giving you a little detail. I do have a little bit of detail. So the reason why it's so large is because of really 4 areas. The first one is tuition. There was about 278,000 because it changes enrollment throughout the year, or really 14 months, right? Because you're estimating 14 months old. Special education had almost $500,000. And fringe benefits was about 300,000, and food service was about 87,000. So you had, those are really what's creating that. You obviously had some other lines in the budget that you had overdrawn some lines because of some decisions that the board made. So if you add all those up, it's not going to amount to exactly what I just said because of those plus minuses. But those are really the areas in the budget that have caused it. So really those areas are not areas you could foresee. It's not like we didn't spend the dollars we were looking for. These particular areas that estimated that ended up coming in under what was anticipated.
And I'm sorry that I had to come in late. I apologize.
No, you're good.
And so I'm not going to backtrack a lot, but the one thing is because this is I think the first time we're seeing this budget increase with bond and then without and then what's the actual number that will, for year over year? Like, what is the actual, is it the 2.65 where we land? And why do we have three numbers?
Yeah, it should be, yeah, I don't have the bond schedule with me.
So with this budget, we're looking at a 2.65% change or increase?
Yes, so really.
Because where you put amount of bond increase,
Yes.
that 2.65, is that the
Yeah,
increase?
yeah.
That's added to the 1.83
Right.
for the total increase. of
You're-
1.4.
So the 4.48 is the real one.
That, the 4.448 is what your budget is increasing by.
Right,
Then
okay.
broke it down to show you
Sorry, Iris.
what, anything, not including your bond, what was your actual, if we didn't have a bond, what would your increase have been?
What about 1.8?
It would have been 1.8. Yep. And then because there's the bond, it's the 2.65.
Okay.
Right? And we're seeing that because part of that increase, it looks really large because of, this current year, remember we had to utilize some dollars from the previous year, so it looks larger than what it will be moving forward.
Okay. What's that mean? We've already talked about this, but are we supposed to make recommendations to the admin now if we want them to make cuts?
Well,
or are
yeah,
we gonna
that's what I was
go
just
through-
asking for, is if we had any, like, if anybody had any discussion or any directive for the administrators or the, we were gonna touch on the budget next Monday of things that we talked about today and some corrections and just different things. And then, for the 21st budget, our only budget working meeting.
So I think it's super impressive that we've gotten to 1.83 as a budget over budget. I still think if we can get it to zero on that aspect, I would like to see if there's any way we can cut anything. I know you guys do an amazing job, so that's obviously not a question, but I just feel like if we could,
So you want to keep it flat?
that would be my suggestion. Just speaking for myself.
Well,
Well,
From a-
so that you look at it this way.
I'm not saying with the bond, I understand that, like, in your explanation.
I mean, that's a couple $100,000.
I just worry that since all the numbers haven't really come in yet, if we end up with an influx that goes up, that's gonna jack that number up too. So if we could bring it down a little bit ahead of time.
Yeah.
And we see any of those influxes come.
And we also have to do the principal's contract and the merit pool.
Right.
In the merit pool, correct.
So-
And
So
any
that one.
retirements are not in here either.
And
We
retirement.
don't have none.
You have none? You're not-
Oh, that's right, we have none, yes.
Okay, great.
Peter actually just whispered that in my ear and I completely,
Well, that's wonderful. So
it's
that's-
like literally.
Well, not.
yeah, because we changed that in the contract. They had to announce by November 1st.
Okay,
No.
great. Okay, so it'll just be the addition will really be whatever's gonna change with tuition,
Right.
whatever's gonna change with, health and, health. And then some other changes we had in here.
And then the merit pool,
And
principal.
The increases,
Yeah.
and those are the
Yep.
increases, yeah.
But the other thing we should consider too is like, we have to realize like you guys are we're negotiating contracts.
Yeah.
So I know that's a separate warrant article, but it ultimately is gonna affect the tax rate.
Correct.
Right? Like that's gonna come in separately. So I mean, we're looking at 4.48% with the bond, right?
Yeah.
And then whatever those contractual contracts bring.
Yeah.
As far as the tax impact. So I mean, really, we could be at a much higher.
That's just my concern, if we can. If Amber's saying it's only coming down a couple $100,000 to get it.
Well, I was just thinking if it's, I was just looking quickly at the bond is 324,000, and that's 2.6. Well, there's just kind of going like that. But with that said, the budget went up 180, 1.83, and there's not a lot cut from. That's-
No, and I always applaud our admin, who do a great job, so. I hate to even say that. It's just, I just don't wanna come down to the 21st meeting and then all those numbers come in and now we're starting to really creep up.
I'll do whatever you'd like me to do.
Just my two
Does
cents.
the rest of the board have anything to add?
It's gonna be very,
Disagree.
very difficult to slash this budget by 200,000. I just don't know what we're asking the administrators.
I mean, one of the things we could do, I suppose, is, in your tuition line, we could talk about that. On average, when I look back on what was budgeted and what actually comes to fruition when the students end the fiscal year, 'cause like I said, it's really like a 14-month time period. It's been about anywhere to 5 to 8 student difference. I mean,
What's
that's
line
something-
number one, Amber?
Tuition is line 40.
The line.
Right now, that's an estimated tuition rate, so that could go down, I don't know, it'll go up.
That's an increase.
I won't know until I do my notes.
Yes. So what is this, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Kristen and Crystal, but last year we added in like an extra student buffer or.
No,
No.
that was a big discussion.
Or we had specified, right?
Yeah, no, but-
Okay.
no,
I know we talked about it last year though.
yeah, we said actuals. I think
So
maybe we
what-
did one,
You did,
maybe
I was gonna say, I feel like we did one.
one.
I thought we did one student. Yeah. So we did have a buffer.
Yeah,
I'm
one.
sure we did one student.
I'm pretty sure it was one.
So, and you said it's currently 160 students, right?
That's currently
this
what our
number?
current roster is going to be anticipated for next year. If you take into consideration, if all 8th graders went to PA next year and the 12th graders would. And nobody moves. And nobody homeschools.
Right.
Or they don't do the voucher system.
And they don't do that. So, I mean, there's variables. That's why I say, if I look back at, history, if I can think of, there's probably about 5 to 8 students, I would say, over the last several years that from the time we budget to the time September happens. It's about 5 to 8 student difference.
Which is why we always see it in surplus every single year.
And you can tell that, so if you were to go back to your monthly enrollment, in that first column, I was putting the budget, and then if you see the September, you see differences there. Just if there's a
So-
line,
So your suggestion is though, I mean, it doesn't really sound like there could potentially be cost savings because we would obviously.
I mean, it's a risk.
Right, it's a risk, right, exactly.
Right now, we're budgeting high streets, which is what you would typically do. With that said, this particular line has seen surplus in it over the last several years. I'm just throwing it out there as a line to maybe look at. Just because, going through this budget, there's not a lot of places to cut. And I'm not sure without cutting some significant areas of staffing, I don't know where you would come up with $200,000.
General cost of everything.
It's going
Wait,
up.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
General cost of everything, anything.
Yeah.
Utilities and
Mhm.
consumables and
Well,
it's all gone up. 1.8% is actually a pretty small increase.
and remember too, if we want to do anything with the tuition line, we do have to trust. I mean, it's got over $60,000 in it.
True.
But we've always said we wanted that to stay there for when Amber does her AREA reconciliation.
Right.
We've gotten nailed with $40,000 of having to hold the town of.
And we have the additional position that we proposed for food service. I don't know, it's gonna have to be a conversation really, administration wants to have through their budget. I'm just
But
throwing
that
out
was only what,
my
like,
concern.
yeah,
23,000.
yeah, well, I was gonna say, it wasn't. Right. Yeah, I mean, there really doesn't make a significant.
We can go through and get the list. And just, I don't think there's a lot.
So we didn't necessarily go exactly line by line, so we could certainly do that if we wanted. We asked questions, but we, Amber did like a summary, and then of the significant changes, decreases or increases, and then we kind of just, jumped around a bit. And then we did talk about a little bit about transportation, which includes like a 7% increase that Amber has, put in there, obviously, because everything's going up. We expect that there will be some type of change with that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, really looking through here, it's really,
And I know we did make a few like Shannon did make a small change, but it was like, I don't even know, was it like 6,000 or something with the field trip
yep,
lines?
the field trip line,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it'll be.
It was, yeah. I mean, it wasn't anything substantial, but we did talk about that.
I
And
mean,
we did add in the additional cost for the free transportation. We know that that was up. I think you were here, right?
Yep.
You didn't- Oh. Okay. So, I mean, I'd hate the director to come in with a flat budget, but maybe if you want to go through it and see if there's any potential that we can just discuss on the November 14th meeting, and then we'll go into the 21st with kind of, I don't.
We're willing to take a look.
Yeah, I don't think, I would people, don't go crazy, but I think, if there's any cost savings, potential cost savings,
Yeah, I mean, health potentially could come down.
right, that's another thing, but we'll know that potentially, we probably won't know by Monday.
No, they, what's the date?
Well, we might, because you said sometimes it comes out the 11th or
14th,
12th.
yeah, I mean, usually the neighborhood between the 11th to, yeah, I might
Okay.
get towards the end of the week, so maybe.
Okay,
But the only problem is if I wait for that, unless it comes in, it's not gonna come in on the 11th because they're not, I'm sure they're not working. since
oh, right, it's the holiday.
So unless it comes in the next 3 days, then your budget won't be in the system, in the drive until, I wait till Monday, unless you wanted to get it in sooner, so.
Maybe put it in Thursday with any additional changes that we come up with or anything we talked about tonight. And then maybe if we do get the rates, we could just let Peter know or put something in the drive for the rates. And then we can kind of just, move the number, see what the difference is.
I can do that.
If you find out, on Monday morning or Monday at some point at any point.
Okay.
Or if you win the lot.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you win the lottery, then you can just pay for everybody's health insurance and.
We're gonna look at it.
Okay. Yeah. I think just to do our due diligence, right? If there's things that we can potentially, especially where it's a contract year, I just,
Yeah.
We're okay.
all right. Does anybody else have anything to add? Okay. So, let's see, we have to go through this next, right? There's nothing under new business. All right, continued unfinished business, informational items, nominations, resignations, retirement, non-public and non-public. Okay. Follow up on next agenda. I have notes for the principal contract and the merit pool. That was it, right? Okay,
I'll put that, increases in diagonal.
perfect. Okay, with Michael's contract and then the principal's contracts, and then, all right, so that brings us to voting on anything, so we're good to adjourn at 7:35 PM. So can I have a motion? Okay. Crystal and Kelsey, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.